Well, we're live. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so good to be here. And just so you all know that we come together each week, and technology is really something. And we work through it each and every week. We come together, and you got to know that when you do these things, things are going to happen. And I am so blessed to be in a room of the greatest people that you can imagine. And it's just fabulous. So I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart before we even get started, because we have a hangout before the hangout, and it's great. So thank you all very much. And I want to welcome everybody out there to this SkyWire. Each and every week we come together, and our main topic is listening. Our main topic is listening. And so what does that mean? That means we don't come here with a pre-plan. We come here open to listen to each other. We come here open to listen to the universe. We come here open to listen to you out there. And that's our path. That is our guidance. That's what we trust. So we come with a question, with a curiosity. And this week our curiosity is about strength. How do we listen to ourselves, to each other, to uncover our strengths? And what does that mean? And listening will tell us what it means. Listening will tell us, what is today's strength? Maybe today's strength is not what yesterday's strength is. And maybe this moment, our strength changes. And that's what we want you to understand, that when you buy into this notion of listening, you trust yourself. You trust the next moment. And that's what you trust. You trust your friend. You trust your buddy, because you're listening. And you're listening for the message of the universe that will guide you all the step of the way. And that's exactly what we do here. We come completely into this green room ready to listen to our higher selves and to see what comes. And so I want to thank you for joining us today and for taking this on yourself and to listen to your strength of the day or your strength of the moment. So with that, I want to just welcome our green room hosts. And we have Heidi, we have Elaine, we have Gail, we have Kaviani, we have Katrina, we have Sheila in the comments, and Sheila is fabulous. She keeps things going. She's like our producer. And I want to ask each and every one of these fabulous people to share who they are so that you get a chance, a snapshot into what's going on here and into the profoundness of this room and this moment. So Heidi, you go first. Who are you? Heidi, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I have the micro open. Yeah, I'm me. How can I describe myself? Normally you describe yourself by what you do. You know, maybe how old you are, if you are wife, and what you do. I'm doing coaching, I'm doing teaching, I'm doing singing and music and many things. But who am I really? Do you want to know that? I would like to know that too. So, listening into me today, I would say I'm very, very sad because my very, very preferred cat died in my arm last night, and he is still here with me. And so I'm, let's say, I'm sad and happy at the same time, and sort of in another space, let's say. That's where I am now.
Heidi.
Hugs.
I would say thank you so much for being authentic and being you. And that's all we ever can ask of each other. And thank you so much for being here today and showing up, because when you said that, I thought, okay, so when somebody asks me, who am I? Instead of saying, well, I'm a coach, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm going to tell them who I'm being. And in that moment, you shared who you're being. And that's a wow for the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Elaine?
See, is my mic? Yes, my mic is off. Hi, I'm Elaine. And this morning, I'm led to introduce myself as saying I'm being a blessing. And my intention is to express myself authentically, whatever that will be this morning, so that I may free my boundaried me to experience my vaster me. On other days, I do that all kinds of ways with laughter yoga and, and one-on-one sessions and all kinds of stuff. But that's how I'm led to introduce myself today.
See how this goes? I mean, everybody out, see how this goes? We had no idea this was going to go just like this. And Heidi did not know she was going to be the first one to speak. And then she just set the intention, and we listened. And Elaine picked up on that and said, you know what? That's how I'm going to explain myself today. So how perfect is that? And Gail?
Hi, thank you so much. It's great to be here, Marilyn. I'm Gail Harris, and I'm a writer, and I'm an author, and I specialize in writing books for other people. And my latest book is a memoir that I co-wrote with former Miss Deaf America. She doesn't hear at all, and so I had to take on a very special listening when I work with her. And it's her memoir, and it's her story. And the book will be out in several weeks. It's entitled Finding Zoe. It's the culmination of all my work to date, and it's an amazing story. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Can't wait to read it, actually. Taking it on my cruise. Kalyani, what about you?
Good morning, everyone. I am Kalyani, and I feel inspired to follow the lead that's been happening and not share a professional bio, but tell you who I am. Because can you hear me, Marilyn?
Yeah, I got you. We got you back.
Okay, good. You asked who am I, so I'm going to answer who am I. I wake up every day more and more trying to embrace and recognize the amazing, magnificent expression of the divine that I am. And I know as women that can be something that is very challenging for all of us to embrace, that we are magnificent and we are an expression of the divine. I do in my professional work, actually, as I'm on my journey of embracing this more every day, it's exactly what I empower other entrepreneurial women and moms to blossom into, being the greatest version of yourself. That's the ultimate journey of our time here.
Yep. I say having the most fulfilling human experience. So that's great. So thank you for sharing that. Katrina?
Hi there, Marilyn, and everybody else on the panel today, everyone listening. I think that I want to take the lead from really what this show's about, because this is really, truly what my passion is in the world. I love being able to help people see this, just the breadth of skills, the breadth of joy, all of their abilities that they may not be able to see in themselves, and that's a lot of where my heart work is, but it's also how I help my clients. So it's great how to have those two pieces collide in the show today, and I'm really excited because for a long time I didn't know how to see my own gifts, and it's really been great to show up and really see myself in that way and then be able to help others to do the same.
Perfect. Thank you. And that is perfect. And I'm sure you do, and listening really does impact how people express themselves, which you do so well. So I really appreciate that. And then Sheila, who is out in the comment stream. Sheila, tell us who you're being today. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about who Sheila is as far as her work, but I would love to hear who Sheila is being today, and she can comment about that. But since 2001, she's concentrated on educating new licensees entering the real estate industry, and she uses over 30 years of experience to guide them through the required education, choosing the right broker, helping them start their careers with confidence based on knowledge and professional conduct. And she's really terrific. So I want to thank her for that. And just let us know who you're being today. And for me, oh my gosh, I'm being challenged on some level. But I love tooting. I love sharing those moments of our, what I like to call our oops, and our toots, our horn. And I think our strengths are all mixed up in that. I think it's very important for us to be comfortable in this world, being able to share our strengths. The world needs to know that we are really strong and that we're confident. And the world also has to be comfortable with our lessons, because if we're not comfortable with our lessons, we won't find our strengths either. And so sharing our lessons, we all learn from. And so I think the more we can share all of it, the better it will be. So with that, are there any comments that anybody has seen out in the comment stream that you want to share? Anything? Okay.
Marilyn, I wanted to tell you that there is the applause app on, so people have a difficulty to write comments today because or they see us or they are on the event page and write comments. So we might not have a lot of comments.
Oh, and I don't know how that got on. Is there any way to get it off?
Yeah, we will talk later.
Okay, well, I know how to get it off before the show. So I apologize for that. So if there is another way to send us a message, you can. I don't know how that is, but okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So with that, let's go discuss what we know about strength. What is it that we have understood up to this point about strength? So why don't you start, Katrina? Let's go. Yeah, tell us what you know about strengths. How do you define them?
You said strengths or stress?
Strength.
Stress. You know, stress can be very individual.
Not stress. Strength.
Okay.
Our strength. Yeah.
Okay. You know, it's so funny how we often see our strengths in other people. If we're not clear on what they are, we'll start to actually admire someone that has something similar that we would like to be, or there's other elements in our life that come so naturally we actually don't think of them as strengths. And so when we kind of go about our life, we're looking at, hey, this is just how I show up in the world, and we're not really seeing the pure, true value of what we can offer. Some people tend to kind of choose that as their career path and sometimes get burnt down on that and then end up, you know, sort of using it in a way that doesn't necessarily feel like a strength. But I think when you're looking at the bigger picture, our strengths are things that just come naturally to us. They feel good when we do them, and we have a lot more than one. You know, I think a lot of people feel that if they follow something for their career, this is the one strength they have, and that's all they can really focus on. I love working with people and showing, you know, just kind of asking them questions. Like, well, if you're focused on listening, it's really also about asking people the right questions. Where do they feel the most free? Where do they feel the most powerful? And often that can lead them to start thinking about their abilities in a different way, or start of really kind of turning the table a little bit and looking at how they do what they do, just paying more attention. And also when you kind of are looking at the strengths that you have a sense of peace within you that allows you to kind of branch out and step out from that in a more confident way, so you don't feel so limited. So the more you can identify what your strengths are and stand in knowing that feels comfortable and that feels good to you, it allows you to branch out and actually try new things and build new strengths. Because, you know, we're here on this planet to do lots of things, not just one thing. And it's really cool to see people kind of get confident in that space and then expand.
Absolutely. So when you say look, pay attention, all of those words that you can replace listening with. And that's really important. And I want to say, I know that there's some things going on with the comments. So we'll work on it, but the other thing I would say is maybe today is the day that there are no comments. It's just everybody just listen and not comment. That, you know, that might be what the answer is. So just know that. So that was really great opening, Katrina. Thank you for that. Kellyanne, what about you? How would you define strength? And what is your special twist? Because I know you got one. Kellyanne, can you hear me? Gail? Okay. Yeah, Gail, pick it up. How about you?
I think there's so many things we could say about strengths. What came to mind when you asked the question initially is that I think that our sometimes our greatest vulnerability could also be our greatest strength, and that we have to, in order to really act on those strengths, we really need to embrace them. It's hard to put this into words, but it's like we really need to, in order to be fully who we are, or to embrace, to really have those strengths come out, we need to embrace them. I'm not sure if there's something I'm trying to get at here, but it's really hard to say. We have to really embrace those strengths, and that's not easy. Sometimes that's hard for us to do. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I mean, there's the duality of everything, isn't there?
There's
everything has a duality. There's the other side of everything, and so a strength can also be your greatest, weakness or greatest lesson. It could be your strength, but it also could be your cross to bear. You could be the greatest whatever in the world, and it could still be the most difficult thing to accomplish. Your greatest challenge.
Right, but how important it is just to really honor those strengths and step into it. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it's really like embracing our gift. I don't work with people in the same way that Kalyani does or that Katrina does, but isn't that the hardest thing sometimes, like for people to really see their own strengths and embrace it? Sometimes it's the hardest thing for us to see our own strengths.
That's why listening is so important, because listening helps us realize that our strength is the piece of a puzzle, and we need all of those pieces to make the whole puzzle work. And it does, and everybody's piece is going to be a little different than the other piece, but it takes every piece. It takes each and every one of us in this room to make this happen, plus out there. With everything we do, our strengths are so, this is a great conversation because it's so meaningful.
It is, and I think,
I'm back.
I was just going to say that bottom line, it comes back to that listening, that people can people can tell you what your strengths are, but you won't really know that until you hear it in yourself. You have to hear that inner voice inside saying, yes, you are strong at this, or this is who you are, and nobody can do that for you. You have to do that yourself. You have to listen and embrace it.
Absolutely, and that voice is very quiet. It's very subtle. The voices of the heart, the sound of the heart is not in your face. It is very gentle, and you've got to really listen. And like this morning, I had an experience. I'm going through a lot of stuff. I'm leaving on this cruise and have all this stuff to do, and family coming who didn't tell me they were coming, and they're coming to my house. I have all this stuff to do. And I heard myself say to myself, wow, you're really like keeping it together. And I didn't realize that was one of my strengths, that I was good at keeping it together. And then I said, you know what, I'm taking that on as a strength. And then I thought to myself, that's the same thing with core values. Core values are things that it's not just family is your core value and work is your core value. It's those things that come to you that you didn't even realize were down to your core. And now I know this is down to my core. I can handle things like that, and I can do it pretty good. And I'm going to take it on, and I'm going to toot it, because it wasn't easy. And I'm tooting that I've held it together, and that's a strength. And that's what that's what we're talking about. So thank you for bringing that all up. Kaylani, you're back? You can hear us?
Yeah, I couldn't get myself unmuted, but yes, I got to chime in.
Okay, go, chime.
I want to add on to what Gail was saying about, embracing our strength, because oftentimes, or probably most all the time, people tend to think that our strengths, and myself included, I used to think my strengths meant everything that I already know I'm good at. What are my great abilities? And I've used all those strengths to carry me through years in my life, create careers around them, be successful around those strengths that I thought related to equals abilities, right? And then at 40, it hit me what my real strength was, and I'm not going to share that story now. I'm going to share it a little bit later. I just want to tell you my perception on strength. It took me till the age of 40 to really listen and tap into that my greatest strengths were things that I thought I would never, ever be good at. I couldn't even imagine myself having them as strengths. And it's because they're not abilities that show up on the outside. It wasn't me being a great organized administrator or a very powerful organized mom. Those are not the true strengths. So I'll tell you the story later that strengths come from that moment when you're really listening, and it's not what anybody else can tell you either. It's like Gail saying, you have to be willing to listen inside. And I found that my strengths were the farthest away that I would have ever imagined, and in the deepest parts of fear, and they're the greatest strengths I have today.
You know, that's a great statement. That was great, because like adversity, you know, you find out who you really are when your strengths. Exactly. It's like freedom. I mean, where do you get freedom from? Freedom from something that's not so free. You know, you get freedom from not being free. You free yourself from something. So strength comes from that deepest part with that adversity, the discomfort, you know, the challenges. And that takes listening. And it takes listening to find the strength to go there. It takes listening to stay there. It takes listening to hear what they are, to use it, to share it, to be okay with the challenge of, like, for me this morning, of like, you know, could fall apart, but then can't fall apart. Find that strength. That's fabulous. Wow, this is great. What about you, Elaine?
What a fascinating topic. Today, I would say that the strength I'm recognizing is my willingness that in whatever group I'm with or person I'm with, I am willing to see and remember that the truth of the other person I'm with or the group I'm with, I'm willing to remember that the truth of them is their divinity, and it's the same stuff as me. And when I remember that, and if I allow myself to be in this place of how can I be truly helpful, then the way I can be truly helpful will emerge perfectly. And I'm not concerned about what form that takes in, or at least my ego is less and less concerned about the form that comes in. There are two realms of experience that have solidified that knowing and that way of being. The first is my longtime experience and practice of Reiki. And for any of those who have practiced second level Reiki or beyond, when you practice remote healing, or when you're engaging with the archetype of the symbol that's there for distant healing, in effect, the meaning of it means it's like the divine in me is recognizing the divine in you. And when that happens, all sense of separation collapses. The sense of separation by time, the sense of separation by geographical space, that collapses, and we're kind of one. So that one thing has informed my strength and my willingness to experience that. The other thing was in my nursing practice for many years. I was privileged to get introduced to the Jean Watson transpersonal model of nursing practice. Can you imagine that? A holistic nursing practice model? But it's essentially the same thing. It says when you walk through the room of a patient's door, can you remember, you know, the wholeness of them, the eternalness of them, the spirit of them, and not just recognize the reality as what I would call the boundaried them, you know, the drama that's going on with their illness or whatever's happening that morning, but remembering, you know, that vaster part of them. And when I remember that, I know there's going to be an experience of mutual blessing happening. So my strength is remembering that whoever I'm with is divine, and I'm divine, and then a perfect dance can unfold from there.
That's cool.
That's it.
Yes, that's cool. So listening beyond, listening past boundaries, listening past judgments, listening to a soul from a soul, period. And the interesting thing is we show that here. We are demonstrating what that looks like. And all of you out there, when you listen to this room, listen to it from the beginning to the end as much as you can, because you will see how we could come at something and come to a similar place. And that's all because we're listening into the context of the universe. You know, we might come about it in a different way, but there's something going on here that we are tapping into, that listening takes us to. And that is that divinity. That is our sameness. And in that place, we're all connected. And that's where we're headed. And you watch this group, you're going to see it. Heidi?
Yeah, it is privilege to be at the end and to have heard everybody and their idea of the topic. For me, strength is a bit, how do you say, there are different concepts of strength. Like I thought strength was in my childhood and later on, it was, as you said before, performance, what you do, what you are able to do, and I'm able to do many things, I have learned that. And I was called a strong woman, and it ended up that men were fearful of me, you know, because a strong woman, fortunately, I found one who likes the strengths I have. But this strength I thought I had before, you know, how to do and how to take responsibility for everything and go out and do and do and do. This actually is not the real strength. The real strength, which I feel now, is in some other place. The real strength for me is, for instance, that I can cry because my little kitty is dead, and I don't get lost by it. I can see it from another perspective. I can know that it's also all right, and that our death is also all right. You know, healing can be also by not surviving in the physical body, and the strength which I have now is to have a sort of confidence. I wouldn't call it a belief. It's an overall feeling of, although it feels not well at the moment, but it is all right, and it will be all right. My life, everybody else's life, and we are going in the right direction. We are held, we are contained in some way. Whatever we do, we will find the right way when we are able to listen. You know, the other concept of strength I had before, there was no listening. It was like a bulldozer running around. And this is not what I would today call strength. Strength today comes much more piano, much with cat feet. Let's stay in this symbol. It's, you need to recognize it, and I'm learning to do that, and I'm happy about that.
And thank you for sharing your learning and in the moment with us here, because it's I'm grasping right here. I'm listening. I'm grasping for every word that you all say, because in this moment we are learning life. Today we're learning life, and I was, you know, just thank you for that. And you know, it's interesting because somebody said I speak low, I speak quiet. I don't see myself as doing that. I see one of my strengths is being able to fill up a room. And being able to fill up a room, I see myself as being loud. And it's so interesting to be hearing you, to be listening, and then to be connecting, listening to connect the idea that I am not loud as I thought I was. And I hear this even on my other show. My producer will go like this to me: "Speak up, Marilyn, speak up, Marilyn." And I think I'm loud because I can fill up a room. But obviously, there's a strength or a something that I'm trying to figure out through my listening that tells me I am not the loud, like the strength that Heidi talked about from before. I'm not aggressive. I'm just full. So anyway, who in here right now has something from what we've been talking about, has a question or an additional comment? Anybody have something?
I'd like to add something.
Go.
People often feel that strength is an outward expression, right? Because they want to be able to see it. But a lot of the times it's really just that inner knowing, trusting yourself, listening to yourself, that inner knowing that you don't necessarily have to share with other people. It's just that sense of belief and care for yourself that maybe you don't express to anyone else, and that's an important thing to think about as well.
Yes, that is so true. So true. Absolutely. It's perfect. It's not, sometimes you just embrace it yourself and you're just happy to have it. And you don't have to share it. And that's great. But and I'm just going to add a but there, because it's in your personal power, your personal empowerment that you listen to, that lets you know, is this something I want to share, or is this something I don't? And it's in that choice. There's power in that choice, and knowing you can go either way, and that's important. So perfect. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Who else? Yeah. Who's got something? Gail?
Sure, yeah, wow. Oh, just taking off on everything that Heidi said, and Katrina, and you, Marilyn, that I think that there's like a wisdom to real strength, you know, that's to a certain kind of strength. It's not like this brutish power that Heidi was talking about. And when you said personal power, Marilyn, I think that really hit upon it, because I don't know, I've had the experience inside where when I've really embraced that personal power, whether that meant just knowing that I'm going to act on something or not going to act on something, it felt so strong inside that it was like I just knew that I could move mountains, you know? It was like just so strong. And that to me is a real definition of strength.
Definitely. So the vision of being able to move a mountain, and nobody has to know what's fueling that. It's just that you have this great get up and go, you're full of energy, and you have this power, and you could do it. And nobody has to even know where it's coming from. It's just coming. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think strength is, that personal power. To me, that's what it really is. I mean, and when we really step into it, we really can move mountains. I mean, we could just like make, I don't want to use the word miracles because that's such a charged word, but you know, we can make things happen, you know, that are just wouldn't normally happen, you know, but it comes from that personal power and working in partnership with the universe, the creative force. That's the ultimate power. And then when we work in conjunction with that, I mean, we can move mountains, but we have to listen. You know, it comes back to that listening, that personal power.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I'd love to jump in.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but I want to say, Gail, every day life is a miracle. So they are miracles. The fact that we can even be having this conversation across technology and we can think at the same time we're speaking and our bodies are keep functioning, life is a miracle. So I think it's a perfect moment just to share a story because it plays on what Katrina and Gail were saying, is that inner knowingness and that inner power. So I'll try to keep it as short as possible. And how strengths often come from, if we're not listening within, we listen to what everybody's telling us about our strengths. So I learned early on as a young girl into my early teens that my strengths at the time that I thought came from the outward way were that I was very self-confident in my abilities. So I always portrayed this self-confidence in what I could do in the world And at that time, it was like, I'm very intelligent, I'm very organized, I can be a great administrator, I'm going to take these skills into the workplace, I want to get out and I want to do something amazing. However, I was an incredibly debilitatingly shy, introvert young girl. I had no self-esteem confidence in myself, but I had total confidence in my abilities, which are what people think are strengths. So I went on to, you know, from the age of 16, create great careers with all of my strengths in the corporate world, in my ability to be an entrepreneur, and create all this success. And along the way, I still had people, and that was like in an administrative capacity of strengths. But along the way, I still had people all the time want to tell me what they thought my strengths were, which was, you're great at decorating. You should be a professional decorator. You are an awesome artist. Why aren't you an artist? And it goes back to that inner knowing that Katrina mentioned, and that power that Gail said, when you are really listening. It took me a lot of years, but I grew up even knowing that I was here for a different, more rich meaning than just those outward strengths. And it took me till, like I said, about the age of 40, and I was faced with all of that success that I had created from my strengths, crumbling down completely, losing everything that I had created successfully on the outside. And at that moment, I really, truly began to listen. Now, I still had been on a path for about 20 years of personal growth and self-development and all those great things, spiritual awareness and, you know, quote-unquote alternative practices. I had been on that journey, but it took the crumbling of my world that was built from my outward strengths that everybody thought I was great at and that I believed I was great at, to take a look inward and listen to that little voice that one day heard a woman that many of you might have heard of, Danny Johnson. I was listening to one of her talks, and there was something that said to me, that would be so freaking awesome if I felt that internally confident that it sounds like she feels right now when she is sharing her vision for the world, her inspiration for what she wants to see other women and people be in the world. I said, that would be so awesome if I could feel that about myself, because I had grown up my whole life not feeling that about myself. And going back to what I said in the beginning about the whole concept of learning that my greatest strength came from being inward, and even though I thought being an introvert was not such a great thing, it turned out to be a really great strength, because it did keep me throughout those 40 years of my life always going a little more inward than most people. I didn't seek like being busy all the time outward, so it gave me more reflective, quiet times. And when the outside world came crumbling down, I said, okay, now's the time that you're either going to continue using your outward strengths to go on in your life and just create another new business, or you're going to open up to that powerful inward strength that you know you've always had, but you didn't know how to tap into it. You were too afraid to tap into it because what would that mean? And I took a look at really what was my inward strength. It was calling me, saying, stand up and share your voice, be heard, be out there inspiring not only yourself, but other people that feel, that know. And that's how it blossomed into my soul's purpose. I realized that there comes a moment that you're at a crossroads and you say, am I going to listen to my inner strengths and live my soul's purpose, or I'm going to keep following outer strengths and just create what I can create with those outer strengths? And I chose that deeper journey than I ever thought I would. And like the saying goes, your greatest, most free, fulfilling moments are just on the other side of fear. And that's where you find out where your true strengths are. And I think that everybody in life comes to that moment. Well, hopefully on this plane as a human, we all get that moment. And it's the moment when you really have to take the listening and say, Am I going to follow the listen and follow that voice and really tap into my inner power strengths or not? And that's what I chose, and I think it's the most powerful, freeing way of knowing your true strengths.
That was perfect. I know you can't see me, but you can hear me. I just found out. I mean, I've been working on it, but anyway, it's all right. It goes with the flow, and it goes with what's going on. And let me just say that we all have, I think, these stories to listen back to. And there's somebody rustling, I think. So we all hear these stories that I call it listening backwards, so that we can listen to our patterns, listen for where we've been, listen for where we haven't been yet, listen for the jobs we've had, for how we've shown up, and give ourselves and listen for the credit that we deserve, and to give ourselves credit for having a strength, to have come through certain things, and to have had our lessons. You know, to be right, to be wrong. Who cares? Who cares if you were wrong? What difference does it make if we're wrong and somebody else is right? Why does that even matter? That's a strength. The strength is sometimes some people are going to be wrong a lot. And maybe that's the strength, is so that other people can be right. Because we don't always want to be great. I mean, here I am running this thing, you can't even see me. But so, you know, what are you going to do? The thing is, we just have to roll with the flow. Heidi shows up today. She has a terrible experience. She shows up with tears in her eyes and a smile on her face, and with warmth exuding from her heart. Now, isn't that a strength? I would call it a strength. It may be a picture, but it's a strength. Heidi?
Marilyn, I want to say it's not a terrible experience. It's only a sad experience. It was also a sacred experience, you know, to witness the death of a creature. I witnessed also the death of my mother. It is very profound and very, I would say a sacred space.
Perfect.
It's not terrible.
Perfect. You're right. You're right
really
on.
Touching, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely correct. Sacred. I mean, I'm having a sacred moment. I'm having a sacred experience, I think, in this group right now, beyond any other. Every week we come together, we have an extraordinary time. But for some reason, I don't know, for me, this talking about strength, speaking about listening in this way has just been fabulous. So, Elaine, did you have something? Gail? Katrina? Which one? Who has something? Yes.
This whole theme of looking at our fears or our vulnerabilities and allowing it to just be okay. Allow ourselves to give ourselves approval in those moments where something unexpected happens, something poignant happens, something that we were thinking might go on, a form of service, a relationship, and then something crumbles. It changes. And we allow ourselves to just be in that space of saying, I can feel the movement of love right in this poignant space. And I can feel the power of love here. And just let that be absolutely okay. And discover some new that needs to come forth. And if we're sharing that experience with others, if others are witnessing it, then indeed it's like our strength shows through in what some might perceive as a moment of weakness, but it's really a strength that's showing up in a moment of humility and vulnerability.
Yeah, and we give words meaning. So we could sit here, I could sit here and say, okay, from now on, let's not even use the word weak. But why not? Maybe it is a weaker moment. So maybe then but if we don't acknowledge and listen to the fact that it is a weaker moment, maybe we don't find the strength in it. So we can have those, you know, conflicting kinds of emotions, feelings, words, but we make it whatever it's going to be. I mean, Gail, Katrina, you're both writers. I mean, you must experience that on a regular basis. I know even for myself when I'm sitting and posting, do I want this word or do I want that word? Is this the word that's going to give off this feeling, look? And I read all of your things, not all of your things, but I read your things that have a lot to do with what we're doing in particular, and you all write differently and you all express yourself beautifully. So, you know, Katrina, you have a great strength. You know, you are able to coin in very few words an experience, an emotion, you know. So I want to ask you, what have you heard in these moments that you want to add to?
I actually wanted to touch again on introverts. I have always been a very talkative person, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not an introvert in a lot of ways. And I think people misinterpreted that for a long time. And I also think that people misinterpret the word introvert to mean weak. And when you're talking about the power of words and talking about experiences, there's a lot of people that, because they can't find the right words in the moment, or they can't seem to find words that they think that people will relate to, they tend to be quiet. But that doesn't necessarily mean they don't have something powerful to say. It's just their strength is in being more inward until they feel that they have that powerful thing that they want to share, so that it makes the most impact, because it might be a little bit more uncomfortable for them to speak. So when you're looking at expressing your strengths, the ladies have already talked about this a little bit. It's about stepping through your fear, but it's also about that right timing. It's saying something when you feel it's the right time, when you feel it's the best, you know, expression, and not necessarily being concerned about how it's received, because when you're focused too much on how it's received, then you're sort of taking away your strength of self-expression. And a lot of what we're talking about today in terms of deeper listening, in terms of expressing our strengths, is it's about really being clear with yourself that you're ready. You don't need an audience. You're just going to be yourself and express that strength in the world. Maybe some people will relate to that strength. Maybe some people will look at you and say, wow, you do so many things, and feel intimidated by that, because that happens a lot too. I think when you have a dynamic amount of basically external strengths that you're expressing. But when you see all of those pieces together, it comes back to what Elaine was saying. We're all human. Can you see the human in the other person? Can you see that divinity in the other person? Because when you can do that, you look at someone just as their value as a human being and having that spirit, and the other pieces just kind of fall away. You're able to be more objective in terms of seeing their strengths. And that's, I think, a lot of, you know, when you bring this back to my writing, that's really why I'm able to write the way I am, because I see people in the truth of who they are. I see their strengths, I see their beauty, I see those other pieces, but that's how I find the right words, because I'm tuning into them and figuring out, okay, if I want to really reach this person, what is the best way for me to do that through words? Because a lot of times that's the only option that we have.
So we're talking about a lot of different things here, all very similar. And, you know, for those of you that are listening, maybe you're wondering, so what are they really saying? You know, we've said a lot of things. What are we really saying about getting up that strength? We're saying that it's okay. Everything you go through, that is listening so intensely and so much to yourself, to be okay, to give yourself permission to go through the waves of whatever that is, and to acknowledge whatever that message is a strength. To share it if you choose to. If you don't choose to, that's fine. Being that strength is enough sometimes for anything. I often say, you know, leaders, that's a strength, but sometimes you're leading at the back of the bus. Sometimes nobody even knows you're a leader. You don't have a title. You're just you're leading. You're helping things flow. So taking a look at whatever the message is, listening to the message. How does that message guide you? Where does it guide you? All of these things. Gail?
Yeah. Well, two things. One, I just want to say, I wanted to acknowledge your listening, just for actually interjecting this, what you just said to the audience at this moment, because I think it's really perfect, you know, that what are we really saying here? But just the need that you realize that needed to happen now. You listened inside, and you realize that, and you address that. And I think that's incredible. And it just brings me to my next point, is that you know, we all have different strengths. And sometimes, and I'll just speak from this personally, I always think that I'm lacking in some way if I don't have the strengths that other people have. Like, I think that you are a master hostess of this show, just how you knew to interject now what you were saying and how you include us. You're just so good at that, and I just could never do that. You know, that's not really a strength of mine. And I really have to catch myself at times and say, well, but that's okay, because I have my own strengths. And I think it's beautiful that we all have our own strengths. It's like I remind myself to look at it that way, rather than looking at it as a deficit of myself. It's like, wow, Marilyn is such a great hostess. Well, like, thank goodness I don't have to worry about getting that done. Someone else is going to do that for me, you know? Right. And we all have our own strengths, and that's really beautiful, you know? Like, if you look at the bigger picture of life, like, sometimes people say that life is like a mandala, and we all come together, and we're all a part of each other. And I'm saying this really for myself as much as for anybody else, but I want to remind myself to celebrate that, you know, to celebrate that we all have different strengths, and that we can all lean on each other for the things that we're not so strong about. And it's a beautiful thing that we all have different strengths.
Yeah, thank you for saying all of that. And, you know, it leads me to, you know, I'm sitting here and I see we have a chat. You know, if anybody else that does, you know, we have a chat. I know you can't see me, so I'm, you know, what can I do? And your choice, you make a choice and listen. I'm listening to it all, but I'm making a choice where I want to put my focus. And I don't want to put my focus on what's not working. I only want to put my concentration and my listening and my ears and my 100% me to this. And no, you can't see me. And maybe you can, maybe you can't, I don't know. But this moment you can't, and it doesn't, and it matters, but in the scheme of things, I cannot do all of that. I am making a choice. As Gail just said, she has her strengths, I have mine, Sheila has hers, Heidi has hers, Elaine has hers, we all have ours. I'm making a choice to forget that. I know it's happening. I know it's happening, I'm conscious of it happening, but I also know that what's most important to me and what I'm listening to me in this minute is generating this conversation, because at the end of the day, is it really going to matter whether you see me or not? No. What's going to matter is, what did Heidi say? What did Elaine say? What did Gail say? Gail just said something great. You know, we all have different strengths. Kalani has shared a beautiful experience. Katrina's sharing what she's sharing. I mean, who cares? Let's focus on the message. The message is not that you can't see me or that the comment thing isn't working. The message is what's going to be the legacy of this world. What is the legacy going to be? It's how we connect, how we are listening to the message of the universe. What is the message of the universe telling us? Does it really care that you can see me or not? No. It doesn't care. It cares what we're spreading. That's what it cares about. Elaine? I can see you laughing.
Well, it occurs to me that when we're having moments of challenge, our ego frame of reference, or what I've called the boundaried me, might say, oh boy, I'm wanting approval, or I'm wanting control, or I'm wanting safety. And so I imagine as you've been experiencing your technical difficulties during the day, there's been parts of you that have been piping up and saying, oh gee, yeah, I'd like to have control of this tech. But then, when you move into the space that says, I'm willing to let go of wanting control, and then I have control. I have control that says, I'm going to be fine in this moment. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be in that strength of recognizing that at this very moment, love is moving perfectly out into the world for those who are curious to experience it that way. And so it's been wonderful to watch you exhibit that strength and communicate it to those who are watching and those who are listening, saying, yeah, let's just get into the curiosity place and feel that movement of love, those strengths emerging perfectly all the time.
Yeah, that was really good. Well, you know, part of the subject of the show is to listen for our strengths, listen to be able to share them, listen to our you know, what I call oops, you know, which you're going to find along the way when you're discovering those strengths, and the oops of Google Plus. I mean, you hear things all the time, and the point is, we need to listen past that. I mean, those boundaries, those stumbling blocks are only there if we allow them to be there. Otherwise, let's not let them get us. I mean, my goodness gracious, our message is far more powerful. And if this isn't if this is, but if it wasn't the platform, let's find another platform. If we are powerful in our message, if anybody out there, if you are powerful in your message, and you are on something and it isn't working, go find something else. Get that message out. There's a lot of people listening in all different places. People are listening here, people are listening on Facebook, people are listening in Twitter, people are listening face to face. You know, people want to listen. So be confident, you know, listen for your confidence to get that message out. Heidi, I'm going to ask of you some kind of closing remarks for the day, because we're coming to that moment, and I want to ask you to please help us close today.
I would say that the more you go into yourself and into the listening of what really is happening in yourself, and I mean also, for instance, by breathing, notice the breathing, notice your body, live in your body, which I would call listening to. The more you go in connection with yourself, the less you are prone to be attacked from outside, from the expectation of others, from whatever comes from the outside. You know, you will be able to handle it without entering into tilt and panic or something. But the more you are in yourself, grounded, the more you are strong. And the more you know your emotions, for instance, you know, and the more you really begin to know yourself. This is a continuous process, and the more you really have the strength to live your life in a, how can I say, in a fulfilling way.
Absolutely. Perfect. And perfect. And thank you for sharing that and being in that space where you've been today. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being in the space that you are in today, because it's all sacred. And each week, as I started going to, I don't know exactly what the topic, what the niche of listening is going to be usually for the next week. It just comes. It comes from listening to what's going on in the world. It comes from listening to the comments that are going on. It comes from listening to you. It comes from just listening, obviously. So I'm going to say this to everybody that's listening, whether you're listening live, you're listening to YouTube or whatever. Come curious each week to listen to something that is profound, because that's what you're going to get. And there's no plan here of attack. It's just the universe working through us, each of us, to bring something to each other and to you that's going to impact the world. And I have no idea what that is. I just know that we're here to do that. And we're trusting each other. All of us in here, and everybody that's been in here, is trusting each other, that whatever that looks like, we're going to be ready for it. We don't have to plan what we're going to say or anything like that. We're going to just know that it's coming and we're going to do it. And if you have something that you think is pressing, you know, you've listened, you've been hearing a message come to you, and it says, this is important, relevant, always bring that. Bring it to the table. You know, comment to us. Let us know what that is. You know, if you are seeing a pattern of something, we want to hear it. And we're curious too. And those will be the topics. And it could be a quote. I mean, it could be anything. So with that, it's 12 o'clock, our time, Eastern time. I want to thank all of you for being here and for sharing this sacred time with us. We look forward to seeing you again. It won't be next week. It'll be the week after. And with that, thank you for listening to us and for sharing this place of profound wisdom. With that,